Hi guys, so I have recently had a few clients email me and ask me a little more about my process of how I actually go about doing my email tarot readings. And I thought it might be a fun thing to do in video format so I can kind of take you guys behind the scenes and show you how I go about this process. So this might be interesting to you if you have been a client or if you are interested in being a client, and it also might be interesting if you are just a fellow tarot reader and want to get an idea of how I do things. So this whole process is instigated for me when a client goes to my website, which is happyfishtarot.com, and purchases a reading through my website, and then I get a notification from PayPal. The way I have things set up now, I reach out to the client once I receive their payment. Of course, if someone had questions about working with me before they made a purchase, I'd be happy to speak with them, but generally how it works is I get the notification that they have made the purchase, and then I will reach out to that client through email. The way that people sometimes think of doing tarot readings is that the client comes to the reader with a specific question, but the more that I've gone on doing these tarot readings, the more that I've realized that there are some clients who have a very specific question and are able to email me and phrase what they are looking to get out of the reading. But more commonly, I have people who are looking for general advice and they need to tell me more information. They need to share some things with me rather than just sending me a one-sentence question, if that makes sense. So the way I do it now is I try to create a dialogue through email before I even do the reading. So I'll reach out to the person and say, hey, tell me what's going on. Feel free to ramble and just let me know what's on your mind so that I can get the most relevant information to create your reading. So it depends on the specific client, but a lot of times I will get in return an email that is usually, I'd say, maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs, and they'll just kind of brain dump to me a little bit about what's going on in their life and what their situation is. I kind of think of it as the same approach you would have if you were looking for advice from a good friend. You would probably just kind of tell them, here's my situation, here's what's going on, and then give them the chance to respond back to you with advice. So that's the first thing that happens, is we have that initial kind of email back and forth. Once we've done that, I confirm to the client that I kind of have an idea of what's going on and that I will be able to go ahead and proceed with the email reading from there. Once I'm ready to actually go ahead and do the reading, there's a few kind of little rituals that I have to get myself in the proper frame of mind to complete the email reading. One of the first things that I will do is make myself a cup of tea, and depending on how many client readings I'm doing in a given day, I will often do herbal tea because the older I get, the more of a reaction I have with caffeine, but I like having a hot beverage next to me when I'm doing the reading. The next thing that I'll do is usually I'll put on some music. I can't do anything with lyrics when I'm doing tarot readings, so I have a few playlists on Spotify that are just more atmospheric, instrumental. Some of them have nature noises, so I'll put on something like that to set the mood. I mentioned this in a video I made a while back. I made a video about getting in the zone for creative work or tarot readings, and one of the things that I talked about in that video is a really simple yet effective ritual of washing my hands. So before I start an email tarot reading, I do typically wash my hands, and I kind of just think, as I'm letting the soap wash over me, about any stress that I'm carrying around or any of my own stuff that's going on, giving that the chance to wash away and go down the drain so that I can show up and be fully present when I go forward to do the email reading for the client. I also will shut the door to my office. So I am incredibly blessed to have an entire room that is basically my territory where I do my tarot work, and let me actually show you this room a little bit. This is my little office. The lighting's kind of crappy at the moment, so it's kind of hard to tell, but over here I have a couch where I can sit and read, And then over here is my actual desk. This is where I do the tarot magic. There's my computer, and I have this bookshelf right next to my desk where I keep almost all of my decks and my books. So you can see my decks there. I don't do anything particularly special with them. They're just kind of stacked on the bookshelf, but I do have some crystal quartz and stuff around the decks. And these two in the front, the Wild Unknown and the Centennial Rider-Waite-Smith, are the ones that I use the most frequently. And then on my desk over here, I have just a little nice display of some nature elements, rocks that I've gathered from a canyon near my home. I have a candle, I have some more crystals, of course, because you can never get enough of those, and some bamboo, and then I have a window right in front of me so I can look out at this beautiful walnut tree while I'm doing my readings. So this is the actual space where I do things. There's my teacup, and that's my cell phone, which usually I put back behind me while I'm doing a reading so that it's not distracting me, and I also put it on silent mode. And then right here is where I actually lay out the cards. When it comes to selecting a deck to use for a particular reading, I let my intuition really guide me with that. As I mentioned previously, the Wild Unknown and the Centennial Rider-Waite-Smith tend to get the most airtime, but I've also been known to use the Dreaming Way Tarot and once in a while the Robin Wood Tarot. I sometimes get a feel based on a certain client and the interactions I've had with them previously as to which deck is going to speak to them in the most powerful way, or once in a while, this sounds a little bit out there, but I'm probably talking to the right community for that. I sometimes will have dreams, or right as I'm falling to sleep, I will suddenly once in a while get an intuitive hit that for a certain reading I have scheduled the next day, I should use a certain deck. So if that happens, I do always follow that intuition. Most of the time, the vast majority of the time, I custom create a spread for each individual email reading that I do. This is where we come back to what I mentioned earlier about having the client just kind of send me a few paragraphs about what's going on and what's been on their mind. I will go through the email that I've received from the client, and I'll read it very carefully and try to keep myself open to which bits and pieces of information hold the most potency, and I will use that information from the email to create a spread. So this is something that is one of my favorite parts of the process, and it allows me to tailor everything to the information that I think is going to be the most useful for each individual client. What you can kind of see here is a template that I've created that I use as the base for my email reading. So it has my little logo at the top, and then I just have kind of some general information about my theory and my practice of how I use tarot. And then down in this section is where I will type in the bulk of the reading. So now we have gotten to the point where I'm actually starting to do the reading. I will get the deck that I've selected to use for the client and shuffle the cards. I don't have a particular methodology with this. I generally just shuffle until I feel ready to proceed. And while I'm shuffling, I try to take some deep breaths and center myself. Ideally, I will have meditated earlier in the day to set the tone in my own vibration. And then I ask, as I'm shuffling the cards, to be guided to the messages and the cards that will be most useful for that client. When I feel that I've shuffled enough times, then I cut the deck 3 times to the left, and I will select the pile that feels like it is the right pile. And then I just lay the cards out in the spread positions, starting directly from the top of the pile. one of the most important things to me from there is that I am as in the zone as possible while I'm doing the reading. So again, I want the door closed to the room, I'm not going on the internet, I'm trying to get myself into a frame of mind where my ego is kind of on hold and I can just receive messages and put them into the reading. So most of the time I get in this almost like altered state of consciousness while I'm doing the readings, and I just let the messages kind of flow through me and I type everything out. I really believe that tarot readings can be actionable and can contain very practical advice. So that's something I really try to focus on in my reading, is bringing in specific suggestions that the client can incorporate based on the cards. And I also tend to include a lot of reflection questions for the client. These could be used as journaling prompts, or they could just be used as kind of food for thought. So once that beautiful magical process of the bulk of doing the reading has been completed, I take a picture of the cards and I attach that picture into the template that I showed you earlier so that the client can have a visual accompaniment to the words. And once in a while, I will sometimes glance back through the reading to make sure everything's presented nicely and that it's coherent. But usually I try to just trust through the powers of synchronicity that the messages are as they should be. I save everything and then I export it as a PDF. And that's how the client actually receives the reading, is as a PDF file, including a picture of the cards and then a very detailed text description. When I send the reading to the client, I've started trying to gently encourage the client to set aside some quiet time to delve into their reading, because I know in our modern age with technology and everything, it's so easy to open up an electronic document and just kind of half-heartedly scroll through it. And I think the power in tarot readings comes when we really let ourselves be fully present with what we're doing, and that is relevant both as the person doing the reading as well as being the client or the seeker who is receiving the reading. I think we get the most out of it and we're really able to get the deepest level of experience from it if we have the intention to actually be present with it. So again, I encourage them to set aside some quiet time to look at their reading and maybe even brew a cup of tea so that they can create kind of a sacred space to absorb the messages. I also open it up to the client if I can clarify anything from the reading, or if they happen to have feedback from me. I try to make sure to let them know that they're welcome to reach out to me if I can help with anything after the reading. And then from there I send it off and it is in the hands of the client, and I hope that they will get the messages that they needed to hear from that reading. That's pretty much my process. I hope that you maybe found something in that interesting. If you have questions for me about my process, you're more than welcome to let me know. I thank you very much for checking out this video.